It has been almost a year since the fighting came to an end. People are just beginning to put the conflict behind them and move on. But this is a difficult path to follow, given the treacherous reminders that lie embedded in the soil. Landmines cover several large areas in the north and east and present a big challenge to communities wanting to return to their homes, as well as to the authorities facilitating that return. In our next report, we hear how demining is progressing in the country and also how efforts to raise awareness could lead to a mine-free Sri Lanka in the future.
L'histoire retiendra que
History will remember the 3rd of December 1997. More than 100 governments formally committed themselves to halt the production, use and transfer of anti-personnel landmines, those sinister instruments of death. The world's landmine contamination is one of the most cruel and deadly scourges of our time. Originally designed to slow the progress of enemy troops or protect military installations, anti-personnel mines have killed and maimed far more innocent civilians than soldiers in battle. These sinister devices...
A seminar for the media in Colombo drew attention to the worldwide campaign to ban landmines and briefed journalists about the scope and impact of this global problem.
There are 44 state parties with mine areas. Many thousands of square kilometers of land remain to be cleared. 15 state parties have missed 2009 deadlines. Some states still do not know how much land is contaminated. After 10 years, mine-affected state parties should be able to say with some degree of certainty how much land has been cleared and how much remains contaminated.
Sri Lanka too is contaminated by landmines and explosive remnants of war resulting from the armed conflict between the government and the LTTE. Jaffna, a focal point of fighting before the ceasefire, is the most severely affected area, where about half of all mines laid in Sri Lanka up to the 2002 ceasefire are estimated to be. But the extent of mine contamination worsened after 2006, when the war intensified. Today, the northern districts of Kilinochchi, Mullaitivu, Mana and Vaunia and the eastern districts of Ampare, Batticaloa and Trincomalee are also affected. Demining efforts began in earnest in 2002, with the Sri Lanka Army playing a big role, together with the National Steering Committee for Mine Action, supported and coordinated by UNDP and involving foreign NGOs. But escalating violence since 2006 have hampered these efforts. Today, the LTTE's military defeat has led to a new government focus on demining as a prerequisite for resettlement of people displaced by the conflict.
So our first goal is to complete the emergency demining by end of this year. So emergency demining basically based on the resettlement program. That's what government intention to clear this area before end of this year.
In Sri Lanka, during these 30 years of long fight against terrorism, according to my records, total of 21,993 have become victims of landmines. Civilians, 1,419. And Sri Lanka Army, 3,686 amputees, Navy 8, Air Force 21, Police 43, Civil Defence Force 12, and LTTE, according to my figures, 16,804 mine victims. Ironically, it only cost $3 rupees 300, Sri Lankan rupees 300, to make an anti-personnel mine. For clearing one mine, it cost $1,000, rupees about 100,000 Sri Lankan. While the rehabilitation of one of its victims A long and tedious process would amount to rupees 1 million or more than that.
As important as mine clearance is awareness about mines, known as mine risk education, where people learn how to make sure they do not fall victims to the mines that may be lying around. This is a task that UNICEF has been undertaking together with local NGO partners amongst conflict-affected communities in Sri Lanka.
With the sudden return of people released from the camps, we kicked off an emergency mine risk education campaign which started in the IDP camps, in the transit sites prior to resettlement, and aims to go into the communities. Access issues reduce the capacity to some extent, but we now want to place also new teams into Mullaitivu and Kilinochchi.
This seminar on landmines and explosive remnants of war targets the media to both raise awareness about it amongst the public as well as to highlight the need to ensure that landmines are not used in the future. Sri Lanka has not acceded to the Mine Ban Treaty, but in the past this was linked to agreement with the LTTE's use of the weapon. But now that the situation has changed, Sri Lanka too could join the 132 countries of the world that have taken the decision to ban the use of landmines. We're going in for a quick break, but we'll be back with the story of an interesting initiative promoting human rights in Sri Lanka. Stay with us.